Boom, watch fam.
What is up, Watch fam, and welcome to episode 120 of Ask TNH. I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and before we get into it, let's do a quick wristwatch check. So right now, I am wearing a vintage Rolex Bubbleback, reference 5015. It's a beautiful yellow gold case, 33 and change millimeters, and it just wears so damn well. In kind of a preppy way, but it's conservative, but it's not small because it's just a thick watch, but I really love it. Let's get into today's Ask TNH. Okay, so today let's talk Rolex and Baselworld, right? I know I've posted about Rolex and Baselworld a couple of times on Instagram, and it's gotten like huge engagement, right? Huge interaction. By the way, if you don't already, follow us on Instagram at Theo and Harris. This is where I'm kind of doing the daily posts and kind of thoughts and all that stuff, so follow us. But so past couple nights, I've posted some prospects, right? Some speculation as to what Rolex could release this year at 2017 Baselworld. So last year, they released the Daytona, the ceramic Daytona, and every year it's slight changes. Rolex has a hard time altering massive things. So really, all we see is slight color changes, little material changes. I don't think we're going to see any introductions of any like major new watch. Not like Baselworld in the 50s when the date just was introduced. I'm sorry, when the Jubilee bracelet was introduced. I mean, it's not what we're talking about, but Rolex does change stuff, and sometimes those little changes make a world of difference. And I think that if it is thoughtful and it is tasteful and it is some really good just small elements, we're happy. Rolex doesn't need to jump over the moon for us, but a little bit of recognition, a little bit of I think play just keeps us coming back for more. So Philip Stahl from Rolex Passion Report, definitely one of the most, it's in the name, passionate Rolex watch enthusiasts in the world. He has a blog online, Rolex Passion Report. Big shout out to Philip Stahl. And he releases every year his predictions, along with really well done graphics done in Photoshop of these watches. So let's get into them. First, Rolex GMT, he believes will be getting a Coke bezel, so black and red. So this could mean the discontinuation of the Rolex Batman, the BLNR with the black and blue bezel, which I loved. I mean, some people now are like all of a sudden showing hate for the Batman. I still love it. But I'm not a big fan of Coke. I know a lot of you guys out there have Coke GMTs, and I love the GMT Master. It's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite sports Rolex. So I have ultra respect for it. I just think that next to the Pepsi does it for me when the two are kind of next to each other, and especially because they are so close. It's one change. That's it. It's the blue or the black, and I just like that the blue is more complementary, whereas the black is just contrast. To me, black and red just reminds me too much of kind of like harsh and just like combating colors as opposed to complementary colors. So I'm not a big fan of the Coke. I think that it'll be really cool to see a really retro Rolex color that hasn't been done in a while in the new ceramic with the beefier case and all that. That's going to be interesting and fun, and I'm sure that they'll be all over Instagram when they come out. But for me, it doesn't really do it. And honestly, it's not that impressive. It's just a color change. It just doesn't. It's not too groundbreaking enough for me to bring my attention to it. Next, and a very interesting one, probably the most interesting point here, is the Day Date. Philip Stahl projects that the Day Date will now feature kind of an integration between the Day Date, the classic, and the Seadweller, which would it would incorporate the annual calendar complication and technology into the Day Date. So as you'll see in the photo, beside the marker, the given marker month that it is, because there's 12 hours in it, 12 hours on the watch, and there's 12 months in a year. There are 12 months in a year. So basically, if it's in September, the little red dot will be, or red or black or contrast dot will be on 9. In October and December and so forth, 10, 11, 12, and all of that. There are two notes that I have here. One, I think that Rolex has done a hard thing with these, with Datejust and with Day Date models. Whereas the sub, right? You can make alterations to the sub, because the only thing the sub has to be true to, right, mechanically, is a watch that is supreme underwater, a watch that will survive, as a tool. Are they built to be tools anymore? No, they're built to be luxurious watches. But nonetheless, they could add unlimited technology to the Submariner in deep diving and all that stuff, and it wouldn't really change anything about it, right? It would still be honest to the sub. But can you really add another complication to a Day Date? It's called the Day Date. I mean, could you add a complication to the Datejust? It's a date just. It's just the date. You know, it's day date. That's it. I mean, the name of the watch. I mean, the day date. You know, puts the function in a box. I mean, you can't really, add another thing in there without changing not just the heritage, but the explicit. I mean, the implied function. Now, is it the day date month? I mean, how do you circumnavigate? Is it the day date annual? Maybe that's what they go. I don't know. Do they even have to change the name, or do they just keep it the same thing? I genuinely don't know. This conversation, this particular watch to me is more of an emotional thing. I'm a huge day date fan, and although I actually like the alteration a little bit, I think that it's cool to add another level to the day date and improve on it. I still am not totally sold on it. What would help me out a little bit, I think, would just be a slight alteration in this cropping job, right? In the job that Philip Stahl and whoever did the editing here did. I would hope that Rolex wouldn't just take the exact kind of format from the Seadweller and use it here. I wish that, or I hope that the red dots or the month indicators are just smaller, right? Because here they come out beyond the markers, and to me it's a little too sporty. I definitely believe the day date should, first of all, be in 36 millimeters, not 40. That's just number one. And my other problem, which is a little bit less abstract and a little bit more kind of tangible, is the aesthetic, the execution of it. I feel like it looks too much like they took it from the Seadweller. They didn't appropriate it for the day date. Fundamentally, I think that these little red or black or whatever contrast markers should be as large as the sticks, as the stick hours. Being larger, it looks more sporty, and I don't think that a day date should be sporty. I've said this before, I don't even like day dates in 40 millimeters, nonetheless 41, geez. I personally think the day dates should be in 36, and maybe for the modern size, 38, 39. For me, the 40 doesn't work. I have no problem if you like the 40, I'm just glad you like day dates, but I think that this watch needs to be refined, and it shouldn't be sporty. End of story. Mr. Stahl also predicted for the 50th anniversary of the Seadweller, which I didn't even think I didn't realize it at first, and I'm sure that most of you didn't either, which was introduced in 1967. They're going to release an example in white gold with blue Seadweller text. Does that make a difference? No. I mean, that's a very, very slight difference. I don't think that it commemorates the birthday very well. I've said this with Patek and Rolex in the past. I hate when brands don't celebrate birthdays well if they plan on celebrating them. If you're going to throw a party, throw a party. So that's kind of my opinion on that. Changing the metal and putting a little bit of a blue text doesn't do anything for me. In my opinion, the next kind of big announcement or speculation is for the Explorer 2, a 42 millimeter watch with a GMT function without a rotating bezel. I like the Explorer 2 a lot. I think that they represent enormous value on the pre-owned market, much more so than GMTs, and they're even rarer. I mean, they weren't produced less, but I think that you see them less. So I think that's a valuable point. I really like that. So what they're doing now is they're taking the white bezel, the white dial version, and they're going to, at least as Philip says, introduce a black ceramic bezel. This makes sense functionally because it's an Explorer. I mean, it's a watch that's supposed to be built for durability, to withstand a beating, and ceramic does so better than steel. Then they're also supposedly going to introduce a black dial with this black bezel. I love this watch, and it's gotten a lot of shit. People say it looks like a Hoyer or a Tag, or they don't like it. It's not Rolex enough. I think it's plenty Rolex. I wish that it was a 40 millimeter instead of a 42. I could never wear the 42. But still, I really, really do enjoy this watch. Frankly, what would really make me even more happy would be lose the case beef. I mean, all of Rolex's watches at this point are fairly large. And I think it would be very cool, if not to point to vintage in design, no problem. I totally understand that you have to move forward, but maybe in sizing a little bit. Keep it at 40, but maybe let's make the watch just a little bit thinner. As opposed to the kind of like the steroid, Submariner case and the Explorer case now. I would love to see this black ceramic bezel, which is thinner than other bezels, because the Explorer just has a thinner bezel, in a smaller 40 millimeter case size and a little bit thinner. I think that would be really cool, and although not vintage by any means, still kind of retaining a vintage feel and a level of athletic refinement or sport refinement. I think it'd be beautiful. I think that this color scheme is executed super well. The Daytona, which everyone is dying over, is great. They did it super well, and the balance of white and black and silver is great. But I think that this is great too. I really do think that the Explorer 2 is an amazing opportunity to own a rare-ish Rolex, and people aren't taking advantage of them enough. So I think that with this new ceramic bezel, if you can get one, I actually say would. Especially put it up against the sub, I'd take the Explorer, believe it or not. I do like to look at what's happening at Rolex now and what could be in the next year or two. We spend so much time at T&H looking at incredible vintage models. I mean, the T&H shop is constantly stocked with vintage Rolex, from bubblebacks to Datejust 1601s and all these things. Amazing vintage Rolex, and we love it. But there is a lot of fun in looking forward and speculating, and not just dealing with what we know, but what is impossible to know yet. And that's like a really fun game. Next, and really quick thought on it, introducing the new Daytona with the ceramic bezel in two-tone. I think it's ugly. All the options that they kind of speculated here, I think, are kind of hideous, to be totally frank. I like two-tone watches. I like two-tone Datejusts, and I like two-tone Submariners to a degree, and plenty of these watches and GMTs, I like them. But the execution here, at least as they speculated, to me, it's kind of tasteless. It has too much of a metallic feel. You know, it's too cold, and I don't know, I just don't like it, so I'm not a fan of this watch. Next, he projects that the steel YachtMaster will get a ceramic bezel. Right now, the ceramic bezel is only for the rose gold YachtMaster, I believe, with the the rubber band, rubber Rolex, blah 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 blah, technology strap, and I think it would be very nice, with this new edition. The YachtMaster is an odd watch. It has very little purpose in the Rolex line. It's very confusing, but I do think that it is another great alternative to a Submariner. It's a sporty watch with good size, and I think that this ceramic bezel, which is obviously now the future of Rolex, hands down, does make for a better aesthetic than the current production model. But this is still a model that I think that Rolex needs to figure out the purpose of. I think that the rose gold example was probably the best new YachtMaster they've made in a long, long time. I'm not a huge YachtMaster fan. I'm not a big YachtMaster 2 fan. I just find that a lot of them, they just don't have any, there's no cohesiveness, there's no cohesion, there's just no sense or logic to a lot of the designs or the choices. To me, it feels like the forgotten model, and rightfully so. I think Rolex forgot to care about it, and now people don't know why they should or shouldn't care. It's made its way fully around. So I'm not a big fan, but I think that this could be a step in the right direction. But take a look at it. You have your own thoughts on the matter. I'm just showing this one to you. And Mr. Stahl finally presented us with a really cool insight that I haven't seen anywhere else. Two Rolex patent applications, or one patent application, two separate pieces. We don't know, for a big date, maybe a turnograph. It's kind of impossible for us to tell you. I have no speculation as to it, but if there's a new Rolex model in the make, that would be like mind-blowing, and I think it might be time for a new model. Who knows? I mean, and I hope it's executed well. We'll see. I just wanted to kind of show you guys this patent because it makes me a little bit excited, and to have no projection about it. I'm glad they didn't really take time to project anything, because it would make it less mysterious. I want this to be a mysterious kind of thing. But anyway, guys, Basel World 2017 for Rolex is looking pretty interesting. I like Mr. Stahl's predictions, and I think that he probably will be right on most of them. He knows more about Rolex than most of the world. So that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching episode 120 of Ask T&H. Don't forget to check out the watch shop at theoandharris.com for not new Rolex, but a wide array of stunning vintage Rolex, some of my favorite watches. So that's it, guys.